This is what happens to overconfident traitors.
I'm a product photographer. I make coffee mugs look like they have ambitions and cheese sandwiches look like they went to finishing school. It's actually a legitimate career once you figure out the business side, but nobody in my ex-wife's world ever believed that. They treated photography like a hobby I did between unemployment checks. My ex-wife Michelle had just made partner at her law firm, Whitmore and Associates, which is apparently a huge deal in the world of people who argue professionally and win. I was genuinely proud of her. I'd been the one staying up late when she practiced presentations, ordering takeout at midnight when she was buried in case files, telling her to negotiate harder for what she deserved. I thought we were a team, the kind where one person brings home the briefcase and the other makes sure the house doesn't implode. The partnership celebration was at one of those venues that makes you feel broke just by breathing the air. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than my car, appetizers so tiny you needed a magnifying glass to find them, and enough black tie suits to staff an aquarium. I figured Michelle would thank the firm, maybe say something humble about hard work, perhaps mention my support. Sweet, quick, done. Then we'd eat those ridiculous tiny foods and go home. Instead, Michelle cleared her throat, looked directly at me with this smile that didn't reach her eyes, and spoke into that microphone with the confidence of someone who'd clearly rehearsed. I want to introduce you all to my ex-husband, Jake Thompson. No degree, no real career trajectory, just someone who's been freeloading off my income while taking pictures of sandwiches. Ex-husband. That was the first I'd heard about it. The room inhaled collectively like everyone just witnessed a car accident in slow motion. Her parents, Gerald and Patricia Morrison, who'd spent 3 years treating me like a questionable phase their daughter would outgrow, started laughing. Not polite chuckles, full knee-slapping laughter like I was a comedy special they'd paid premium prices for. A few lawyers laughed nervously. One woman near the shrimp tower looked genuinely uncomfortable, which I appreciated. My brain did this thing where time slowed down and sped up simultaneously. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Feel every eyeball in that ballroom focused on me, waiting to see if I'd crumble or explode. Here's the thing about being publicly humiliated. You have options. You can shrink. You can explode. You can do that nervous laugh thing where you pretend it's all a joke even though your soul is leaving your body. Or you can do absolutely nothing they expect. I didn't blink, didn't stutter, didn't look away. I reached for my champagne glass and raised it high. The movement was slow enough that people noticed and the room got even quieter. "Cheers," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but calm enough that I sounded almost bored. "This is the last time any of you will see me." Then I took a good sip, because that champagne probably cost more than my monthly insurance, and I wasn't about to waste it. Set the glass down with a gentle clink, and walked straight toward the exit. No running, no storming out like a reality TV villain, just a steady, purposeful walk that said, I'm not fleeing. I'm choosing to leave this energy behind. The hotel corridor was blessedly empty. My hands were shaking with that post-adrenaline tremor, but I pulled out my phone and ordered a ride. 3 minutes away. Perfect. While I waited under an unnecessarily ornate sconce, I opened my notes app and started a checklist. Don't text back, not tonight, not when angry, not when they inevitably try to gaslight me into thinking I overreacted. Pack fast, essentials only, leave the relationship baggage behind both literally and metaphorically. Never eat appetizers that look like punctuation marks again. My ride pulled up, a blessed Toyota Camry driven by Hassan, who didn't ask why I was leaving a black tie event early, which made him my favorite person in the city. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of myself in the car window, still in my suit. Still technically invited to that party, but somehow looking like myself again for the first time in 3 years. The apartment was exactly how I'd left it 3 hours earlier. My cat Oliver lifted his orange head from the couch and gave me that specific feline expression that says, "Oh, you're back already. I thought you'd be gone longer. I had plans." I didn't waste time. I grabbed my equipment cases and started with what mattered. My cameras first, the Canon that had paid for itself 3 times over, and the backup Sony I'd nursed back to professional health. Each lens got wrapped in foam like they were made of crystallized dreams. The 50mm that made everything look like a movie scene. The macro lens that could make a strawberry seed look like landscape photography. The workhorse zoom that had shot everything from engagement rings to craft beer labels. Hard drives went into a padded case. 4 terabytes of client work, my entire portfolio. My proof that I wasn't just some guy with a camera and delusions. Clothes were easier. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 black shirts, because wearing all black makes you look either artistic or like you work at a trendy coffee shop, and both were acceptable. 1 button down for client meetings, the basics. My laptop went into my bag along with my good jacket, the charcoal one that made me look like I had my life together even when I absolutely didn't. I started handling logistics, pulled up booking sites and filtered for pet-friendly because Oliver and I were a package deal. Found a decent extended stay hotel about 15 minutes away, 2 weeks, affordable enough that it wouldn't destroy my savings. Booked it. Then I emailed my 4 active clients with brief messages about a family emergency requiring my immediate attention, but assuring them their projects were on track and deadlines were secure. Professional. Vague enough that nobody would ask follow-up questions. True enough that I didn't feel like a complete liar. I texted my best friend Marcus, an ER nurse who'd seen everything and was subsequently unimpressed by most human drama. Michelle roasted me at her party, called me her ex-husband in front of everyone. News to me. I left. His response came immediately. Want me to bring marshmallows? Because that's a fire. I actually laughed out loud. Moving out tonight. Hotel for now. I'll keep you posted. He offered to help, but I told him I was good. Just needed to disappear for a bit. Ghosting, but make it healthy. Proud of you. Call if you need bail money or emotional support or both. By midnight, I had everything in my car. A 2015 Honda Civic with functional cup holders and a working aux cord, which was all I needed. Oliver went into his carrier with minimal protest and only 1 escape attempt. I did 1 final walkthrough, turning off lights, checking I hadn't left anything crucial behind. The hotel room was clean, generic, and blessedly mine. I set up a mini studio by the window where natural light would hit in the morning. Tripod in the corner, reflector against the desk, camera bag within arm's reach. Oliver immediately claimed the desk as his throne, then repositioned himself directly on my laptop keyboard like a purring paperweight with opinions. The text started around 7 the next morning. Michelle sent a progression of messages working through what looked like the 5 stages of grief, but making it everyone else's problem. That was dramatic. You really just left? Seriously? People are asking questions, Jake. Then, after a 20-minute gap, look, it was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke. You're being too sensitive. And finally, we should talk about this like adults. I think we can work through this if you just communicate better. The sheer unfiltered audacity of calling me her ex-husband in front of a ballroom full of people and then suggesting I was the one with communication issues was so cosmically absurd, I almost had to respect it. Almost. I didn't respond. That was rule number 1 on my list, and I was sticking to it. But Michelle was just the opening act. Her mother, Patricia, sent me a text that was basically an essay with punctuation that looked like it had been through law school. Jake, I hope you understand that Michelle's comment last night was meant in good humor. We're all adults here, and sometimes humor among successful people can seem harsh to those who aren't used to that environment. I think you overreacted by leaving so abruptly. It reflected poorly on Michelle during her important moment. Perhaps you could reach out to her and apologize for the disruption. Family means supporting each other through big moments, even when jokes don't land the way we intend. I read it 3 times to make sure I hadn't hallucinated the part where she suggested I apologize for being publicly humiliated at an event I didn't want to attend in the first place. But wait, there's more. Gerald didn't text. He sent an email. A formal email with an attachment. Financial clarity, your relationship with Michelle. The attachment was an actual Excel spreadsheet titled, Where Jake Benefited from Us, with color-coded categories including rent differential, networking events attended with dollar values assigned to appetizers I'd eaten, career advice value listed as $5,000, and, my personal favorite, Wi-Fi troubleshooting from February listed as $150. I'd fixed his Wi-Fi by unplugging the router and plugging it back in, something he could have Googled, and he'd assigned it a monetary value like I'd performed surgery. The only message that felt remotely human came from Diana Park, one of Michelle's colleagues at the firm. I'd met her maybe 3 times, always briefly at firm events. Hey, Jake, that was brutal last night. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. If you need a referral, I know a sustainable fashion brand that needs product photography. They're looking for someone who can make eco-friendly clothing look high-end without the greenwashing vibe. Thought of your portfolio. Let me know. I stared at the message like it was written in a foreign language. Someone from Michelle's world being kind, offering help without a lecture attached, not suggesting I'd brought this on myself. I replied, asking for the contact info and thanking her. Her response came back fast. Done. Also, for what it's worth, half the room thought what you did was the classiest exit they'd ever seen. The other half are lawyers and don't understand human emotion, so don't worry about them. By evening, I'd made a decision. I searched for therapists and filtered by accepts my insurance and doesn't look like they'll judge me for having feelings. Dr. Sarah Chen specialized in life transitions, self-worth, and recovering from toxic relationships. Her photo showed someone with kind eyes and the kind of smile that suggested she'd heard worse stories than mine. I booked a virtual session for the next day. The session happened in my hotel room, with Oliver occasionally photobombing the webcam. Dr. Chen didn't seem bothered by the cat, or that I was clearly calling from a hotel, or that I spent the first 5 minutes explaining the spreadsheet situation. Your exit was healthy, she said after I'd finished the whole story. You set a boundary in real time. That's actually really difficult to do. I felt lighter after that session, not fixed. I wasn't naive enough to think one therapy session solved anything, but lighter. Like someone had confirmed I wasn't overreacting, wasn't being too sensitive, wasn't the problem. Picking a new city was like online dating, except instead of swiping right on someone who lied about their height, I was committing to a zip code that could either change my life or make me regret everything. I made a list because that's who I was now, apparently. My requirements were simple: decent natural light for photography, affordable rent, a creative community that wouldn't ask why I didn't go to art school, and good bagels. You can tell everything about a city by its bagels. If they're serving you bread with a hole and calling it a bagel, that's a red flag. I shortlisted 5 cities, eliminated 2 immediately because their apartment listings looked like they were written by people who thought cozy meant you can touch all 4 walls without moving. That left Pittsburgh, Richmond, and Boston. I picked Boston not because of some grand epiphany, but because I looked at the light. I spent hours researching photography studios, looking at Instagram posts tagged with Boston locations, studying how the sun hit buildings in different neighborhoods. The light was good. Golden hour actually meant something there. The architecture had texture. Also, the bagels passed the test. I found a loft in an old converted textile factory in a neighborhood full of artists. The listing showed exposed brick, tall windows that were basically photographer catnip, hardwood floors with more character than most people I'd met at Michelle's firm events, and enough square footage for a proper studio space. The rent was reasonable for what I was getting. I video toured with the landlord Thomas, who wore a Celtics jersey and didn't ask a single question about my credit score or why I was moving from out of state. He asked if I was cool with noise because there were other artists in the building. When I said I was literally moving there to be around creative people who weren't lawyers, he laughed and said, "You're going to fit right in, man." I signed the lease digitally, transferred the deposit, and suddenly I had an address Michelle had never been to. That felt more powerful than it probably should have. Moving day was a blur of U-Haul panic and the discovery that I owned more camera equipment than furniture. The loft was everything the photos promised. Those windows were going to make my product shots look like they belonged in magazines people actually paid for. My neighbors introduced themselves within the first hour. Maya lived across the hall, a furniture maker who showed up with homemade cookies that were still warm. "Welcome to the weird building," she said. "We're all creatives here, so it gets loud sometimes, but it's good loud. Like people making things loud, not people screaming about parking spots loud." Ethan upstairs was a slam poet who practiced at weird hours but was genuinely talented. Downstairs was a small ad agency that smelled like expensive coffee. Their lead designer, Amber, came up the next day and asked for my portfolio. "Juniper said you're a product photographer? We outsource that work constantly. If you're good and you're fast and you don't ghost us when things get chaotic, we'll send work your way." I told her I was all 3 of those things. "Great. Send me your portfolio and your rates. Real rates, not the I'm desperate so I'll work for exposure rates. We pay actual money." That night I sat on my floor in my loft in my new city, surrounded by boxes and possibility. I opened new bank accounts, changed my business address to the Boston loft, updated my website header, unsubscribed from Michelle's firm newsletter. On a sticky note, I wrote 3 rules. No begging, no bragging, just building. I stuck it on my bathroom mirror where I'd see it every morning. Starting over professionally is weird because you're the same person with the same skills, but somehow you have to convince yourself and everyone else that you're not just running away from a dumpster fire, you're running towards something better. I spent my first full week in Boston rebuilding my brand. My old website had been fine, but it felt like it had Michelle's fingerprints all over it. She'd helped with the copy, which meant she'd edited all my personality out and replaced it with phrases like leveraging visual storytelling to drive brand engagement. Nobody talks like that. Thompson Studios, that's what I called it. Simple, clean, my last name like a signature on work I was proud of. The website got a complete overhaul. Straightforward packages with actual numbers instead of contact for pricing, which is just code for I'll make up a number based on how much I think you can pay. 3 tiers, each clearly outlining what you got, how many images, how many revision rounds, turnaround time, everything. No hidden fees. And here's the thing that felt revolutionary. I stopped discounting my work. Just stopped cold turkey. No more friends and family pricing, no since we go way back deals. If someone's really your friend, they want to support you at full price. I joined every local creative meetup I could find. The first one was at a coffee shop called Paramount Coffee, and the meetup was called Boston Freelance Collective. The description said, casual hangout for independent creatives who are tired of working alone and talking to their pets. I showed up with my portfolio in a simple binder and introduced myself. Hey, I'm Jake. I'm a product photographer. I make inanimate objects look like they have thoughts and feelings. Recently moved here from a city where people thought photography was a hobby I did between being unemployed. People laughed with me, not at me. That was new. A woman named Casey, who did brand strategy, said, "Oh, thank God, someone who actually admits this stuff is hard. I'm so tired of people pretending freelancing is all freedom and sleeping in. Like, yeah, I can work in my pajamas, but I'm also constantly one missed invoice away from a panic attack." Everyone nodded like she'd recited scripture. I showed my sample shots and people actually leaned in, asked real questions like, how do you get that reflection instead of, what's your real job? A graphic designer named Ben said he had a client who needed product shots for a rebrand and could he refer me? Absolutely. That was the first organic referral I'd gotten in months that didn't come with a lecture. The gigs started coming. A coffee roaster that wanted their bags photographed like they were about to drop a philosophy podcast. A candle company run by 2 women named Beth and Jordan who'd started making candles in their kitchen. They wanted flames that feel like Sunday morning. I shot those candles at golden hour with backlighting that made the flames look like tiny campfires you could hold in your hand. They cried when they saw the proofs, actual tears, then paid me on time and referred me to 3 other businesses. Therapy with Dr. Chen became a weekly thing. She taught me phrases that felt like cheat codes for adulthood. That doesn't work for me became my superpower. 5 words. Simple, not aggressive, not apologetic, just factual. Client wanted rush delivery without rush fees. That doesn't work for me, but here are my rush options. Family friend wanted free headshots because it'll only take a minute. That doesn't work for me, but I'd love to send you my pricing. I need to sit with that before responding. Saved me from approximately 17 terrible decisions in a month. Someone would ask something via email that felt urgent but really wasn't, and instead of immediately saying yes because I was afraid they'd find someone else, I'd say I needed time to consider it. 90% of the time, sitting with it revealed it was either a terrible deal or something I just didn't want to do. 3 weeks into my Boston Renaissance, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I let those go to voicemail because 90% of unknown calls are spam or worse, but something made me answer. Mr. Thompson, this is Lionel Fitzgerald. I'm a founding partner at Whitmore and Associates. Retired now, though I still maintain advisory involvement. My brain short-circuited. Whitmore and Associates, Michelle's firm. The firm where I'd been publicly roasted. I heard about what happened at the partnership celebration, Mr. Fitzgerald continued, his tone even and unreadable. I also happened to see your portfolio. Diana Park forwarded it to me when she was looking for photographers for a project. Your work is exceptional, Mr. Thompson. Really exceptional. The firm is undergoing a rebrand. New visual identity, new website, new marketing materials. We're looking for someone to handle the photography, team portraits, office environment, the works. I'd like you to pitch for it. Would you be interested? The irony tasted like a whole hardware store in my mouth. This was the firm where my ex-wife worked, where her parents probably still told stories about me at dinner parties like I was a cautionary tale, and they wanted me to pitch for their rebrand. My heart was doing burpees, but my voice stayed level. I'd be very interested. When would you like to see a pitch? How's next Tuesday, say 10 in the morning? We can meet at my home office in Wellesley if you'd prefer to avoid the downtown office. He knew. He absolutely knew that walking into that office would be like voluntarily attending my own roasting sequel. Tuesday at 10 works perfectly. I'll prepare a comprehensive pitch deck. I sat on my floor for 5 minutes after we hung up, just staring at Oliver. This is insane, I said out loud. This is absolutely cosmically insane. Oliver yawned. You're right, I said. It's also an opportunity. I cracked my knuckles and got to work. The pitch deck I built over the next 4 days wasn't just good, it was nuclear. I created mock-ups showing what their rebrand could look like. Team portraits where people actually looked like humans instead of corporate robots. Office shots that didn't have that fluorescent lit hostage situation vibe. Brand colors that suggested professional and competent without screaming, we will bite your head off. I included samples of my range, serious when needed, warm when appropriate, dynamic when it required energy. I wrote copy that was clear and confident without being cocky. I priced it fairly, not cheap because desperate, not expensive because delusional, just right because I knew my worth now. Tuesday arrived, and I dressed in my good charcoal blazer with dark jeans and boots that said creative professional instead of showed up in sweatpants. Mr. Fitzgerald's home office was surprisingly normal. Big windows, natural light, bookshelves that looked actually used, coffee that smelled expensive but not pretentious. He was there with Diana and another partner named Richard Chen who handled marketing. I pitched for 45 minutes, showed them mock-ups, explained my process, walked them through how I'd shoot their space to make it feel both professional and human. I addressed the elephant directly. I know my personal history with this firm is complicated. That won't affect my work. If anything, I'm more motivated to deliver something exceptional. Richard smiled. I appreciate the directness. Show us a test series, 5 portraits, 3 office environments. You have 1 week. I shot that test series like my entire career depended on it. I photographed 3 attorneys, none of them Michelle, thank God, and made them look competent and approachable. I shot their conference rooms with light that made them feel less dystopian and more like places where productive things happen. I delivered it in 6 days. They loved it. The contract came through Friday afternoon. Full rebrand photography package, 6 figures paid in installments with the eliminate fee clause that protected me if they backed out. I signed it, returned it, and just sat there, staring at my laptop screen like I'd won something I didn't know I was competing for. Then I went online and bought Oliver a premium scratching post with multiple levels because we were officially a 2 scratching post household now, and that felt like success. The thing about success is it makes you simultaneously more confident and more paranoid. I just landed a 6-figure contract with a firm that had previously treated me like decorative furniture. And instead of celebrating, I spent 3 days convinced they'd realized they made a mistake. Dr. Chen called this imposter syndrome, but the work was real, the checks cleared, and suddenly I had momentum. I started going to co-working nights at a space called The Foundry, where freelancers gathered to work in parallel like a productivity support group. That's where I met Sam Rodriguez, who was sitting at a table surrounded by sticky notes and muttering at their screen. Everything okay? I asked. Sam looked up like they'd forgotten human faces existed. This client's website is held together with duct tape and prayers. I'm basically performing surgery on a patient who's already dead. I laughed. I photograph products for a living. Last week I spent 2 hours making a hamburger look appetizing while it slowly decomposed under hot lights. I understand fighting losing battles. Sam perked up. Product photography? Do you do website visuals? That's how we started collaborating. Sam built websites for small businesses. I provided custom photography. We referred clients back and forth and both made more money. Our first collaboration was for a skincare company whose products were great, but whose website looked like a digital cry for help. Sam rebuilt the site with clean layouts. I shot the products with lighting that made them look magazine-worthy. The owner cried when she saw the results, then told 6 other business owners about us. My cousin Lisa showed up one Thursday, unannounced as always, carrying a duffel bag and chaotic energy. She'd been a barista, a yoga instructor, a social media manager for a pet psychic, and was currently between opportunities, which meant she was crashing on my couch. She walked into my loft, looked around at my organized studio setup, and said, "You look like a movie character who finally got it together." "That's because I finally did," I said. Lisa stayed for a week, and during that time, she inadvertently became my focus group for an idea I'd been rolling around, teaching other creatives how to not get screwed over. "You should teach this stuff," Lisa said one night while we ate Thai takeout, and I explained how I'd learned to write protective contracts. Like, seriously, you went from being the person who worked for exposure to having a six-figure contract. That's a workshop. I launched it 3 weeks later. The Scrappy Creator's Survival Guide. 2 days, 8 hours total, covering everything I wished someone had taught me. Pricing that reflected actual value, contracts that protected you from scope creep, lighting hacks using $10 reflectors instead of $500 modifiers, and my personal favorite module, how to decline politely without catching fire. I capped it at 20 people and it sold out in 4 days. The attendees were exactly who I'd hoped for. Photographers, designers, illustrators, writers, all good at their craft and terrible at the business side. I taught them how to calculate their actual costs, including their time and expertise. I showed them contract templates and explained every clause. I demonstrated lighting setups using stuff from Target. When we got to the boundaries module, I taught them the magic phrases Dr. Chen had taught me. "That doesn't work for me," became the group's catchphrase. The reviews came in over the following weeks. My favorite said, "Jake made me love invoices. I didn't think that was possible. I raised my rates and 3 clients said yes immediately. I've been undercharging for years. This workshop paid for itself in 1 week." Another person wrote, "I finally told a client that rush delivery without rush fees doesn't work for me. They paid the rush fee. I didn't spontaneously combust. Miracles are real." I ran that workshop 3 more times, each one selling out faster than the last. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Michelle with the subject line, "Proposed Framework for Ongoing Communication." Only a lawyer would title an email to their ex like it was a legal brief. The email was straightforward. She'd been thinking about our conversation, and given that I was literally photographing her firm's rebrand, maybe we should establish ground rules. Would I be willing to meet and discuss this? A neutral location, no ambush conversations, just 2 adults trying to figure out how not to make things worse. I showed the email to Dr. Chen during our next session. "How do you feel about meeting with her?" she asked. "Honestly, I'm okay with it," I said. 6 months ago, I would have deleted that email and fled to Canada. But now I don't know. It feels like we're both trying to be adults about a situation that started as a dumpster fire. "That's progress," Dr. Chen confirmed. "Just remember, you get to set boundaries too. This isn't just her establishing rules. It's a mutual agreement between equals." I replied, suggesting Thursday at 2. I picked a cafe in a nice neighborhood called Elixir Coffee. Nice enough to feel respectful, casual enough that we weren't doing this over white tablecloths. And crucially, in Boston, which meant I had home court advantage. Michelle showed up exactly on time wearing a cashmere sweater and jeans, which was so radically different from her usual power suits, I almost didn't recognize her. "Thanks for meeting me," Michelle said, wrapping her hands around her cappuccino like she needed something to do with them. "I know this is strange." "Strange is kind of our brand at this point," I said. "Might as well lean into it." She almost laughed. "Okay, so here's what I was thinking." She pulled out her phone and opened a notes app because of course she'd prepared. "We need ground rules, things we agree not to do if we're going to maintain a civil relationship. I wrote some down, but this is collaborative. You can add or veto anything. Rule 1, no jokes with knives. No using humor as a weapon to take shots at each other, especially not in front of other people. Rule 2, no bringing up who owed what or who supported whom financially. That's past tense, not relevant anymore. Rule 3, no slipping our marriage into conversations like an extra charge. If we're at the same professional event, we don't bring up our past relationship unless directly relevant. We spent an hour hammering out details like we were negotiating a treaty. We agreed we'd be cordial exes. Nothing more, nothing less. When her parents came up, I was clear. Your parents want to meet, Michelle said carefully. My mother mentioned it last week, something about clearing the air. I used the phrase Dr. Chen had taught me. That doesn't work for me. I'm open to being civil with you because we're going to cross paths professionally, but I'm not interested in being the family punching bag again. Your parents made their feelings about me very clear, and I don't need closure or apologies or awkward brunch conversations where everyone pretends the past didn't happen. She was quiet, then nodded. That's fair. I'll tell them you're not interested. We established holiday protocols. Keep it light, 2-line texts, maximum. When Thanksgiving rolled around a few weeks later, I sent, Hope you have a good Thanksgiving. She replied, You too, enjoy the day. Simple, clean, not hostile, not intimate. 4 months later, when Michelle was promoted to managing partner, youngest in the firm's history, I sent a text. Congrats on managing partner. Keep building. Her response came an hour later. Thank you. That means a lot. It wasn't romance, wasn't friendship in the way most people would define it. It was something weirder and probably healthier. Respect between two people who'd hurt each other, acknowledged it, and decided to be better going forward. Marcus, when I told him about the whole situation over beers, said, "So you're like divorced but functional." We're like two businesses that used to merge and then split, but still occasionally have to attend the same conferences and would prefer not to make it everyone else's problem, I explained. This is two adults who learned how to use their words. A year after the party that detonated my old life, I got invited to give the keynote speech at the Northeast Creative Business Summit. Not a panel, not a workshop tucked in a side room. The keynote. The thing where you stand on an actual stage with lights and a microphone, and people who paid money to hear you talk. My first reaction was to assume they'd sent the email to the wrong Jake Thompson. My second reaction, after Dr. Chen talked me down, was to actually prepare a speech. The morning of the keynote, I stood backstage in a venue that held 300 people. My hands were shaking just enough that I noticed, but not enough that anyone else would. The introduction happened. Someone read my bio. Product photographer, workshop facilitator, a voice for sustainable creative business practices. I walked onto that stage. The lights were bright enough that I couldn't see individual faces, which helped. The microphone was right there waiting, and I did something I'd gotten really good at over the past year. I just started talking like a human. "You don't need permission to be valuable," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "And if someone introduces you as a punchline, become the comedian who owns the room, not by being louder or meaner, but by deciding your worth isn't up for debate anymore, by building something so undeniably yours that nobody can take credit for it but you." I told them about the party, about the toast that flipped the table, about walking out and deciding that was the last time anyone would see me shrink. I told them about sticky notes with rules, about therapy phrases that worked like cheat codes, about learning that boundaries weren't rude, they were infrastructure. People laughed in the right places, got quiet in the important places. And when I finished, when I said, "I left a ballroom, built a life," "You can too," they stood up. All 300 of them, on their feet, applauding like I just said something that mattered. In the back of the venue, I could see them. Mr. Fitzgerald, Diana, Marcus, Sam, Lisa, Maya, Ethan. The people who'd seen me without a resume attached. The people who'd believed I was valuable before I'd convinced myself. After, we celebrated with tacos and enough laughter to make my face hurt. Back home, I framed a photo from that night. Me, a mic, a room listening. Under it, I wrote, "Left a ballroom, built a life." Oliver knocked the frame over within 5 minutes and I laughed. Perfect. Nothing in my world was fragile anymore. Not the glass, not the jokes, not me. I wasn't the guy getting roasted at a law firm party anymore. I wasn't the one apologizing for existing or discounting my worth. I'd become someone who knew exactly what he brought to the table and wasn't afraid to charge accordingly. Best decision I ever made was picking up that champagne glass, taking that last sip, and walking away from that ballroom with nothing but my dignity and a cat carrier. I built something nobody could take credit for but me.